Well, some of you might already know this, but in the past couple of weeks I've been physically assaulted twice. Got my ass comprehensively kicked one of those times. And another time I was attacked in my shop, and quite a bit of damage was done to my shop, and I got hit in the face, etc. And that second time the gentleman in question got arrested. Now this video is not about that, but I'm making a point about crime and punishment with this one, because you know, a lot of my friends and even people who aren't really friends with me who see the damage that was done to my shop go, oh, you know, what's going to happen to the guy? And I basically explained to them that without any prior convictions, the most that's ever going to happen to him is he's probably going to have to pay for the damage that he's done. But as far as attacking me is concerned, he's not going to have to, you know, serve any time incarcerated or anything like that. And the same goes for the damage that he's done. And a lot of my friends and people, they always go, oh, there's no justice, you know, he should get more of a punishment than that, and so on. And, you know, because I was the one who was wronged, it's tempting almost to agree with that sort of analysis, except for this. How is it that, how much time should someone be incarcerated for assaulting another person? How do we decide how many breaths behind bars is worth a punch in the face? You know, I don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I think that people should be able to behave violently against each other without any consequence. Of course I'm not saying that. But, it's, you know, how is it determined what punishments go with what crimes? And I think this is a question that cuts right across society in terms of crime and punishment. I think most people have opinions in varying degrees that sort of go along the lines of, well, most punishments don't fit the crime. Well, I want to meander off subject a little bit, and I'll come back to what I was saying, so follow me here for a second, because it's going to seem like I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. But there's an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation which always comes to mind when I think about this type of issue. In this particular episode, the Enterprise goes to this planet that has been peaceful for generations, and in orbit of the planet there's some space station with some kind of artificial intelligence that maintains law and order on the planet below. And well, during the course of their visit on the planet, young Wesley Crusher, bless him, they're playing a ball game, I think, and the ball bounces off onto the grass, and Wesley goes off to get it. And apparently that particular spot of grass is illegal to walk on. And so Wesley gets basically arrested for it, and they're going to execute him for walking on the grass, because guess what? On this planet, there's only one punishment for transgression of the law, and that is the death penalty. Now, the logic being that the laws are sacrosanct. The laws keep society together and make sure that people can live together in peace and harmony. And anyone who transgresses the law is an affront to that peace, and therefore needs to be removed from it. Now, there's a lot of logic actually to that. Even though I am someone who's completely against the death penalty, I can almost see the poetic beauty of having a single punishment for all crime, because that way we're saying, if by doing that, you're basically saying that the law is so sacred that it is inviolable. Of course, the problem with a system like that, whether it was capital punishment or any other prescribed, preordained punishment for whatever the crime would be, the problem, of course, becomes, well, you're not free anymore. To quote Gandhi, if you're not free to break the law, then you're not free. Free human beings need to be able to make determinations for themselves about what they will and won't do, obviously. But of course, when it comes to issues of crime and punishment, that gets a bit tricky. Once upon a time, when the people who were writing the founding documents for the United States were thinking about these issues, you know, historically speaking, government and the police and the powers that be always had a little bit too much authority. And so, you know, certainly the Bill of Rights is an attempt to limit the powers of the authorities and of government in particular. Now, the implication behind having punishments that are variable between one crime and another kind of implies that some crimes are more okay than others. I mean, for example, if you get caught speeding and they're going to charge you $150 for it, now that is a deterrent if you don't have very much money. But if you're rich, well, hey, you can just take a calculated risk that if you get caught, you can just pay the fine, and it's no big deal. And the same is true in my case. For example, the guy who assaulted me and trashed my shop a couple weeks back, probably the most that's going to happen to him is he's going to have to pay for some broken glass and some cleaning costs. It's going to set him back a few £100 probably. Now he could have easily thought, you know what, it's worth it to smash that guy's face in, and that's part of the problem. See, I'm not one of these people who says, oh, lock him up and throw away the key. I'm a big fan of mercy. I'm also a big fan of, what's the word? When you put someone in jail and you want to rehabilitate them, that's the word I was looking for. Because it seems to me that punishment, almost without doubt, doesn't really affect any kind of deterrent against crime. For example, in countries where the punishments are more harsh than they are, say, in the Western world, for example, Saudi Arabia, you will get your hand cut off if you steal something. But you know what? People still steal things, knowing that they're going to get their hand cut off if they get caught. And sure enough, some poor fuckers do get caught and they get their hands cut off. And some of them get their fucking heads cut off for the crimes that they commit. But they still commit crimes. I think if you look at societies right throughout history and all over the world, it doesn't matter what country you're talking about, what culture, how rich or poor the culture is, in every society right across the world, it tends to be those who are either economically disadvantaged or educationally disadvantaged who tend to commit the preponderance of crimes in a culture. So it seems to me obvious that we need less economic deprivation and less educational malaise, and then we would sort the problems of crime out to a very large degree without any need for punishment whatsoever. As regards the issues of punishment per se, I personally have a hard time figuring out what punishments are fitting for a particular crime. For example, like I say, I got smashed in the face the other day and my shop was trashed, and he's just going to have to pay for it. But what punishments are just for what crimes? I don't really know how you can make these determinations on what criteria. For example, I personally value my liberty more than almost anybody I've ever met. The idea to me of going to jail scares the shit out of me. You mean I would have to let someone else tell me what time I went to bed, what time I woke up, what time I could eat, whether or not I could take a shit, what I did with all my days, the daily hours, The idea of having all those restrictions placed on my freedom scares the shit out of me. So a 6-month sentence to me seemed like forever and would really scare me. And I wouldn't, that is for me a harsh punishment. On the other hand, some other poor fucker who maybe hasn't had such a great life as I've had might look at 6 months and say, hey, cool, I don't have to work for 6 months. I don't have to worry about bills for 6 months. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. And for them, a 6-month punishment isn't much of a punishment at all. But you can't look at someone and decide how much their liberty matters to them. And even a larger point than that I would make would be, of course, there has to be only one law equally applied to all, or there's no such thing as justice, because justice depends on equality. So I don't really know what the right answers to these questions are in terms of crime and punishment and how to deal with it. All I know is that punishment isn't really, in and of itself, much of a deterrent, and I think history shows that to be the case. So whatever the case might be as regards how we deal with crime and punishment, I think there's an unarguable case that there's a moral relativity going on. We do definitely think that some things are more okay to do than others in terms of crimes to commit. Or maybe I should flip that around. Some things are more wrong than others. Pedophiles and rapists and murderers and whatever. I think everyone would universally condemn those types of acts. And in fact would condemn most crimes. But why is it okay? Well, not okay, but why, if some 19-year-old job wants some beer money and steals some old lady's handbag, if he gets caught and he never had any prior convictions, he's going to get his wrist slapped and he's going to go straight back out on probation, and that's no deterrent at all. So, like I said, I'm not one of these throw away the key kind of guys, but I think these issues need to be re-examined, and maybe new standards need to be applied. Just some food for thought. It's been on my mind a lot, seeing as how everything that's happened to me has happened to me, and your thoughts to be added onto mine would be mostly appreciated. This has Got That Funk. I got to go out. Have a good night.